You know, some of life's most difficult situations aren't really problems with a clear solution. They're choices where there's just no perfect answer. So how do you decide what's right when every single option feels wrong? In this explainer, we're going to break down a really powerful framework for navigating those exact moments, drawing from philosophy, spirituality, and even neuroscience.
Okay, so to get us started, let's dive into this with a famous thought experiment from Harvard's Michael Sandel. And trust me, this thing is designed to push our moral intuitions to their absolute limit.
All right, picture this. You're at the controls of a trolley car and it's completely out of control. The brakes have failed. You get that sinking feeling in your stomach as you look ahead and see 5 workers on the track. You're heading right for them, and you know with absolute certainty they're all going to die if you do nothing.
But then you see it. There's a side track off to the right. The thing is, there's one worker on that track. So now you've got this impossible choice. Do nothing, and the 5 workers die. Or you can steer the trolley onto the side track, killing the 1 person, but sparing the 5. So what do? Most people, when faced with this, they say they'd turn the trolley. The logic seems to be better that 1 person dies so that 5 can live. Seems pretty straightforward, right?
Okay, but hold on, let's change the scenario just a little bit. This time, you're not the driver. You're just standing on a bridge, looking down at the track. And you see the same runaway trolley about to hit the same 5 workers. But standing next to you is a very large person. And you realize if you just gave them a little push, they would fall onto the track and their body would be enough to stop the trolley, saving all 5 people. So, do you push them? Now, this is where it gets interesting. Most people have the complete opposite reaction. They say, no way, I wouldn't do it.
So, what's going on here? Why does everyone change their answer? The math is exactly the same. Sacrifice 1 life to save 5. This conflict we feel, this hesitation, it actually reveals 2 fundamentally different ways that we think about what's right and what's wrong. So the first framework is what's called consequentialist reasoning. This is pretty much the logic we all use in that first trolley problem. It basically says morality is all about the consequences of an act. The right thing to do is whatever produces the best outcome for the most people. It's just simple math. But the second way of thinking is called categorical reasoning. And this is the logic that kicks in when we think about pushing the person off the bridge. This framework says morality is located in the quality of the act itself. Certain things, certain duties and rights are absolute. And from this point of view, murder is just wrong, period. It doesn't matter what the consequences are.
All right, so let's bring this home now, because this isn't just some fun philosophical game. We can actually see this exact same tension, this push and pull between consequence and category, play out in the really hard choices we face inside our own heads.
There is this incredibly powerful insight from the scholar Nouman Ali Khan that just gets right to the heart of it. He explains that the way we interpret a hardship, the assumption we make about it, that actually shapes what the hardship even means for us. In a very real way, our perspective becomes our reality.
I mean, just think about it for a second. When something goes wrong in your own life, maybe you totally bomb a big interview, or you get a scary health diagnosis, or a relationship falls apart, what's your very first thought? What's the story you immediately start telling yourself about why this is happening to you?
It turns out we usually fall into one of 2 extremes, and they mirror those philosophical frameworks almost perfectly. On one side, you've got the "it's all my fault" mindset. This is basically a consequentialist view. This bad outcome must be a direct consequence of my bad actions. And that leads straight to guilt and self-blame. Then on the other extreme, you have the "it's all fate" mindset. This is much more categorical. This was just meant to happen, there's nothing I could do. And that leads to a feeling of complete helplessness.
But the most powerful, and honestly, the most peaceful path is right in the middle. It's about finding that balance. It's acknowledging where you might have messed up, but also assuming that the challenge itself isn't a punishment. It's a test. It's an opportunity to grow. It's not just your fault, and it's not just fate. It's a chance to learn something.
And here's the really cool part. This isn't just a nice philosophical or spiritual idea. Modern science actually shows us that when you adopt this kind of mindset, when you see challenges as a test, you can physically change your brain to handle these situations better.
So according to Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, that feeling of stress, of agitation, that you get when you're facing a tough problem, that's not a sign that you're failing. It's actually a biological signal that your brain is getting ready to change. It's like the starting gun for learning and for growth.
The whole process of adult learning, what they call neuroplasticity, it really has 3 key steps. First, you get that alertness and agitation, which is fueled by adrenaline, and that just gets your brain ready. Second, you bring intense focus to the problem you're trying to solve. And third, and this one might surprise you, you get deep rest. It's actually during sleep that your brain does the real hard work of physically rewiring itself.
This also helps us bust a huge, common myth about dopamine. We all tend to think of it as the victory molecule, right? The reward you get for winning. But its main job is actually to be released when your brain recognizes you're on the right path and you're making an effort. It's your brain's way of rewarding the process, not just the outcome. It's the little chemical voice that says, keep going, this struggle is productive.
So when you put this all together, philosophy, spirituality, neuroscience, you start to see that they are all pointing to the exact same really powerful conclusion about how to navigate life's hardest choices.
So here's your toolkit for those tough choices. Philosophy gives us the language to understand that tension we feel, that pull between the best outcome and our core principles. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that our mindset, seeing a challenge as a test, not a punishment, is what defines its meaning for us. And neuroscience shows us that the very act of engaging with that struggle, with real focus and effort, is what literally builds a stronger, more resilient brain.
So the big takeaway is this: the goal isn't always to find the perfect answer, because in so many of life's unwinnable choices, there just isn't one. The real growth, the real reward, it comes from the process of just wrestling with the problem. It's the effort that truly matters.
And that really leaves us with one last thought to chew on. What if we shifted our whole focus? Instead of agonizing over finding the one right answer, what if our goal was simply to get better and stronger and wiser at facing the question itself?